Welcome back to the Equally Yoked Show. Honored to be with you today with the latest talks in Islamabad. What we've come down to this sort of conclusion based on what is being said and communicated. We're going to look at this clip here in a moment from JD Vance concerning these talks. But let me just mention at the top of this show, he looks, I want to say it here, he looks kind of defeated here. That he went in with some expectations that they would be there to, with this sort of idea that JD Vance, the vice president, closest to the president, was going to be able to make or at least land some type of deal in Islamabad when it comes to Iran. Now, we know there was, throughout the media, there was a lot of deals, a lot of 10-point plans being circulated. And of course, some news outlets ran with some of those false 10-point plans, which weren't actually some of the ones that Trump was even going to consider to make a deal on. So when we look at these latest talks, there's no details as to what they have sort of discussed in these meetings. Rather, he does say that these were productive. However, there's no deal. Let's take a look.
Well, good morning, everybody. And let me say a couple of notes of appreciation. First of all, to the Prime Minister of Pakistan and to Field Marshal Munir, who were both incredible hosts. And whatever shortcomings in the negotiation, it wasn't because of the Pakistanis, who did an amazing job and really tried to help us and the Iranians bridge the gap and get to a deal. We have been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So
first of all, he immediately says this is more or less bad news for Iran rather than America. And rightly so when he's talking about this or talking in this tone. Maybe utilizing this moment that they are going to go back and maybe I'm interpreting this incorrectly, but talking about a final offer. And that's it. We're going to leave. We're not going to, continue this on. I can only imagine 21 hours communicating, talking, going back and forth, discussing. And I'll let this play out because this is a very short, very short moment here where he briefly addresses some of the press. There might be a little bit of a strategy here because, of course, they're probably going to be watching to see what is going on, what is going to happen with this press conference. A little bit of a break, but he looks somewhat defeated. He looks exhausted and tired for these negotiations.
we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms. Questions?
Sir, Nick Robertson from CNN. Precisely what have they rejected here? Can you help us understand it a little bit?
Well, I won't go into all the details because I don't want to negotiate in public after we've negotiated for 21 hours in private. But the simple fact is that we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon, and they will not seek the tools that would enable them to quickly achieve a nuclear weapon. That is the core goal of the President of the United States, and that's what we've tried to achieve through these negotiations. Again, their nuclear program, such as it is, the enrichment facilities that they had before, they've been destroyed. But the simple question is, do we see a fundamental commitment of will for the Iranians not to develop a nuclear weapon, not just now, not just 2 years from now, but for the long term? We haven't seen that yet. We hope that we will. Jen.
Was there a framework on anything? And also, did the Iranian frozen assets come up? And did you reach any conclusions on those frozen assets?
We talked about all those issues, Jen, and we talked about a number of issues beyond that. And so certainly those things came up. But again, we just could not get to a situation where the Iranians were willing to accept our terms. I think that we were quite flexible. We were quite accommodating. The president told us, you need to come here in good faith and make your best effort to get a deal. We did that. And unfortunately, we weren't able to make any headway. Preston.
Mr. Vice President, how often did you communicate with President Trump throughout the negotiations? There were reports that there were multiple rounds, where there were breaks in between negotiations. How often did you communicate with the president throughout those rounds, and what was he saying as you were going through these negotiations that you said fell short?
Yeah, obviously we were talking to the president consistently. I don't know how many times we talked to him, a half dozen times, a dozen times over the past 21 hours. We obviously also talked to Admiral Cooper, to Pete, to Marco, to the entire national security team. We talked to Scott Bessent a number of times. So look, we were constantly in communication with the team because we were negotiating in good faith. And we leave here with a very simple proposal, a method of understanding that is our final and best offer. We'll see if the Iranians accept it. Thank you.
Mr. Vice President, where does this leave the Strait of Hormuz?
Just sort of walks away, but the top of the priorities here is to end Iran's nuclear capabilities. This is one of the things that Trump has been set on for decades, that they should not be allowed to have nuclear capability, nuclear weapon capability. But of course, the Strait of Hormuz is one of the second most discussed within the administration, and they've also wanted to limit and dismantle. So the Strait of Hormuz isn't necessarily a sort of point of the negotiations in the sense of being on par with nuclear weapons capability or dismantling their military or even taking out their Ayatollah, their supreme leader. It's because of the fact that Iran does control the Strait of Hormuz and what they've been doing there. This sort of attaches itself on. So, of course, it becomes a sort of automatic point as to what they need to negotiate on. But this is Donald Trump. Donald Trump on Truth Social said massive numbers of completely empty oil tankers, some of the largest anywhere in the world, are heading right now to the United States to load up with the best and sweetest oil and gas anywhere in the world. We have more oil than the next two largest oil economies combined and higher quality. We are waiting for you. Quick turnaround. So there's so much that is happening on the Iranian front and what we're going to be seeing concerning this. But as we witnessed just yesterday, the breaking news of this was actually from the New York Times, discussing some of the meeting that was done in private by Benjamin Netanyahu, where people were saying, look, Trump was swayed into this deal by saying, look, this is what we could accomplish. We have J.D. Vance calling it BS, calling balls and strikes. We have Marco Rubio also calling BS. We have some of the others, Dan Kane, Scott Bessent, basically saying, look, we can probably take on two of these, points like taking out the supreme leader and destroying their nuclear capability. That's possible. However, that's really where they stood on. Where this is where they sort of are beginning to end this conflict, this war. And this is why you've also been hearing for time and time again concerning the fact that Trump has said on numerous occasions that they're meeting their objectives, that they have met their objectives. They don't really need to do any more other than just to make a deal and pull out and call it an end of the war. So with the updates going on there, of course, we're going to be looking at further issues in America, around the world, and of course here in California. But what's been interesting as far as an update on the Epstein case, we have Melania Trump talking before the media here concerning these the Epstein files. And we're going to be looking at that just to update us because I know people are still asking about this. So what's the update with the Epstein files? This is Melania Trump.
Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. Of course, this doesn't amount to guilt, but we still must work openly and transparently to uncover the truth. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony. Each and every woman should have her day to tell her story in public if she wishes, and then her testimony should be permanently entered into the congressional record. Then, and only then, we will have the truth. Thank you.
So here's what we see.
Several prominent.
Excuse me. So what we've been seeing with Epstein and the updates here, Anna Paulina Luna has been on this like a hawk, where she comes in with an update saying, update, Chairman Comer has agreed to call these 4 named co-conspirators in to testify. We've known that some of these co-conspirators that she mentions by name, some of them were recently seen in public with congressmen like Ro Khanna, Thomas Massey, and many others. But she's coming out like a flame and saying, look, they don't get to have victim status. So she's saying that I'm calling on the rights, calling on the DOJ to persecute individuals who took plea deals. So they took plea deals under civil rights violations and consider additional charges where appropriate. If you traffic a young girl or girls, you don't get to pretend to be a victim. There's a massive difference. And this is where we've seen in the files, in some of the files where you had redacted names that were seemingly or actually coming from some of these quote unquote victims. Here we go.
That Jeffrey Epstein was running an intelligence gathering operation. In my professional opinion, I do believe it was a honeypot operation. And I do believe that there's a list of individuals who did engage in trafficking, were given these plea deals, and I'm going to name those individuals right now. The first one would be Leslie Groff. The second one, Sarah Kellen. The third one, Nadia Markova. And the fourth one, Adriana Ross. All of these women engaged in the trafficking of minors as adults. They were working and complicit with Jeffrey Epstein's operation. And in my opinion, they are not to be given victim status because they did partake in harming young girls. I remember seeing in some of the files, some of these girls were, as young as 10, 11 years old and older. And so obviously we have a lot of work to do, but I did want to come and give an update and let you.
So she's been on these files and really been vocal about Congress doing nothing. She has been on this. And so let's see. I wonder if this is an instance here to... Okay, yeah, this is... okay, we're going to be going over Eric Swalwell, who's running for governor in California. This is actually quite interesting. He responded to some of the allegations. We're going to be looking at that in a moment. But with this Epstein file update, we're talking about Anna Paulina Luna, who's been on this again, like I said, white on rice. And she's been, I think, one of the most vocal concerning these issues here. And so there's so much, if you just go to her X account, there's so much that she's coming forward with because of the fact that she's seen these files herself, the unredacted files. She's talked about the redacted names that were supposedly victims, but actually talking about, some strange emails. What's the one where showing a picture of a kid saying the kid looks yummy or something like that? Whatever it was. I don't remember exactly how it was, but it was nasty. Despite the fact, Eric Swalwell, Fang Fang, his little, fling with Fang Fang, we'll call it that, where he is getting hammered, not drunk, but hammered online because of the allegations that are coming forward. And here's even CNN saying that 4 women described sexual misconduct by Eric Swalwell, including a former staffer. Let's take a look at this post here. This
Governor's race right here in California. A former staff member is accusing Eric Swalwell of sexual assault, and a new report published by the San Francisco Chronicle.
Now, NBC4 has not independently confirmed these claims, but some Democrats are already calling on him to leave the governor's race. Conan Nolan is in the newsroom now with reaction for us. Conan?
That's right. This is a huge shakeup in the race for governor of California. Adam Schiff, a member of the United States Senate who endorsed Eric Swalwell just moments ago, rescinding that declaration and that endorsement. The chairman of the California Democratic Party, Rusty Hicks, saying he finds this very troubling, and he's asking everyone, including Eric Swalwell, to consider the path forward. This may end up being a big boost to other candidates. Eric Swalwell, the candidate from the Bay Area running for governor, says he's still in the race. It started on social media with a post from political activist Cheyenne Hunt, a one-time congressional candidate and the executive director of a progressive group called Gen Z for Change.
The Democratic candidate currently leading in the California governor's race has a known history of being predatory towards women.
Hunt offered no evidence and cited no individuals by name. Her posts were largely ignored by mainstream media outlets. But Swalwell's campaign pushed back anyway, saying claims of inappropriate behavior, non-disclosure agreements, or sexual misconduct were untrue. This was the Bay Area congressman on Tuesday to KCRA TV in Sacramento.
Did you ever behave inappropriately with female staffers?
No, it's false. And also, some of the allegations I've seen, which is that we've had NDAs in the office and there's never been an allegation.
That was until today. The San Francisco Chronicle reporting a woman who says she worked for Swalwell for 2 years in his congressional office claims she had sex with the congressman while he was her boss.
Now, these allegations, again, are just allegations until proven guilty here, but otherwise Eric Swalwell goes to X to discuss these matters because, look, he's losing some serious reputation here. And the gains that he has gotten just before all of this is coming out, I mean, look, it's looking bad for Eric Swalwell. And he does, first of all, he doesn't need to be governor of California when supposedly his actual residency is in Washington, D.C., if I'm not mistaken. But Swalwell loses all 21 of his endorsements from Democratic colleagues. Representative Swalwell, Democrat California, lost the last of the 21 endorsements he had from fellow Democratic members of Congress on Saturday as Representative Adelita, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, rescinded her support for his gubernatorial campaign. This is why it sort of... why all of this coming out, all of this information is going to really damage his reputation, especially when it comes to this race. Let's finish off this clip.
And alleging he twice sexually assaulted her when she was too intoxicated to consent. The Chronicle reports it reviewed text messages the woman sent to a friend about the alleged incident, spoke with people she confided in, and examined medical records showing she later sought pregnancy and STD testing. Neither NBC4 Los Angeles or NBC News have independently verified the claims in the article. As with his earlier comments, Swalwell's campaign strongly denied the allegations, saying they are politically motivated.
We're 27 days before an election starts. I don't want there to be any question.
His rivals quickly called for him to leave the race. State Schools Chief Tony Thurmond.
Take responsibility for your actions.
Now, look, this is actually a video from one of the women who was involved in this sexual misconduct done by Eric Swalwell, who she's going on privately here, where she's masked and, she's actually not masked, but she is, her identity is hidden for obvious reasons. But otherwise, here's a clip here from CNN, actually.
Figuring out ways to blame myself. I shouldn't have reached out to him at all. I should have left. I should have done this. Well, Eric shouldn't have raped me.
This Capitol Hill staffer is coming forward for the first time on camera to talk about her experience with Congressman Eric Swalwell. He is now a leading Democratic candidate for governor of California.
Let's get together, make the biggest wave this state has ever seen.
Swalwell was in his late 30s and married when she joined his office as an intern and became a junior staffer. She's speaking in shadow as she fears professional consequences.
It was in 2019. I was, again, driving him to an event. This was my job.
And you were 21 years old.
And I was 21 years old. We see some sort of parking lot, and he says to pull over. He pulls out his penis and instructs me.
He said ling ling. Yeah, fein fein. Yeah. I was wrong. That's crazy. That's wild. There's no way we will support anybody connected to SA. Yeah, you're right. Anybody living in California, we need to really get on our game here when it comes to changing the leadership in California. Look, in California, there's so much happening when it comes to the fraud that is being upended again by Nick Shirley, who has done this in Minnesota and caused such a type of upheaval in the Democrat, kingdom here, where they've really established themselves, and we're seeing it done all over again. But here in California, this is what we needed to see happen. We saw hospices, and here in California, we're seeing more fraud. And it's incredible because we're seeing that California is saying, look, we were the ones who actually found this out. Right? It wasn't Nick Shirley. It was actually us. This is what Gavin Newsom and his here. Before we get to that story, let's take a look at Eric Swalwell. We have to. This is his comments here on X. Okay, let's take a look.
A lot has been said about me today through anonymous allegations, and I thought it was important that you see and hear from me directly. These allegations of sexual assault are flat false. They are absolutely false. They did not happen. They have never happened, and I will fight them with everything that I have. They also come on the eve of an election where I have been the frontrunner candidate for governor in California. I do not suggest to you in any way that I'm perfect or that I'm a saint. I have certainly made mistakes in judgment in my past, but those mistakes are between me and my wife. And to her, I apologize deeply for putting her in this position. I also apologize to you if in any way you have doubted your support for me. But I think you know who I am. For over 20 years, I have served the public. As a city councilman, as a member of Congress, and as a prosecutor who went to court on behalf of victims, particularly on behalf of sexual assault victims. That's who I am and have always been. This weekend, I'm going to spend time with my family and friends.
Oh,
and I appreciate those.
Typically, when that is said, we saw that happen with Governor Walz, where essentially he said, look, I'm going to step away from being a governor. I'm still going to work on this in the back end. Ugh. We know what he's going to do. He's going to take some time with his family to discuss what are our other options here. Bad. Just bad. But not only that, would you not have 21 of the endorsements from Democratic colleagues if they didn't see that there was any type of truthfulness to this? Whether some of these were actual, these allegations were actually conducted. These sexual allegations. But even then, his reputation is very bad. So when we talk about California, again, moving into California here for a moment, or sticking on this high-speed rail train in California, we'll talk about that. And then we'll go to Gavin Newsom. This high-speed train, they also want to build a high-speed bus. Here's KTLA reporting in a 60 Minutes report. Officials say they now believe that the rail line linking LA to San Francisco could ultimately cost about $126 billion, more than triple the original price tag approved by voters. Look, convenience isn't the answer here. Look, I understand we want to build these things, but when you're talking about Democrats trying to build convenience, it's never going to work out. Never going to work out. And this is what they do. They want to charge taxpayers more for a hocus pocus bogus high-speed rail train that will never come. An idea that came from, obviously, where does this originate, guys? Help me out here. Communist China? Where is it that they have a sort of a high-speed rail train? This is what we're looking at. But Gavin Newsom and the fraud that we've been seeing, he says California is again leading charge against large-scale identity theft and hospice fraud. I'm sorry, California was hospice fraud. Minnesota was the daycare fraud. Today, we are taking decisive action against 14 providers who tried using stolen identities to bill Medicaid or Medi-Cal for non-existent hospice services. And of course, he's got to add Trump into the mix because why not? Why not? But this is their statement here from their attorney general, who is absolute trash. Here we go.
This is just the latest example of the California DOJ's longstanding, ongoing, and successful efforts to combat hospice and Medi-Cal fraud. We have been doing this work for years. We've been doing it successfully before certain people in this country decided to think about it for the first time. California DOJ has been going after healthcare fraud since 1979. For decades. Trump is late to the party.
Okay. Sure, buddy. Trump is late to the party, but only if something is done and something is made this public until Nick Shirley does anything about it. So somebody who's 20 years old who goes and does this. Because why? Is we need to stop putting people in power who are going to defraud the American taxpayer. We're tired of this. We're sick and tired of this nonsense. $24 billion for homeless. Yes, they're asking for more. You're right. Karen Bass is asking for more money for homelessness. Go figure that they'll only correct homelessness if Xi Jinping comes to San Francisco. And then we'll see clean streets like we've never seen before. This is absolutely crazy. Here's Nick Shirley blasting Gavin Newsom, saying, "You tried to paint me as a pervert for exposing fraud, and as a result, radical leftists start trying to dox me and send death threats, wanting to kill me. Now you are taking credit for leading the charge on the fraud. Are you serious? You are the fraud." Here we go. This is a post from Gavin Newsom Press. It says, fact check after Nick Shirley exposed widespread hospice fraud because multiple hospices operate at the same location. Turns out 9 of the 10 hospices at one location don't even bill state taxpayers for hospice care. California investigates a right-wing influencer's hospice fraud claims. Here's what it found. And it says this was new scam just yesterday. And today, he's admitting that hospices are committing fraud. And what do you mean hospices? Video shows all the names: Holy Angels Hospice, Miracle Hospice, etc. Support my work and help me continue to expose new scam. There is some serious fraud in California. And of course, what Gavin Newsom is seeking to do, and yeah, we all remember this video here, admitting to having sexual relations with his best friend campaign manager's wife. And he still managed. We should have outed him. But why do Americans do this to themselves? This is what they continue to do. It's just crazy. So what about the $160 million raised for fire victims? Oh, don't get me started on the Palisade fires. Vance has been known for years, known for years and done nothing until they got the national spotlight. You're right. This guy is a whack job. And yes, I hope it turns red. I hope this sort of red wave that we prayed for years ago, that it would come to California, that it actually, and California is mostly red, except in the densely populated areas such as San Francisco and others, where you have these, obviously sanctuary cities play a big part. We saw even with the fraud happening with paying homeless folks to register. What were they doing? Registering just names? This voter fraud that is happening in California? This is just crazy. Just crazy. Maybe we'll take a look at that on another broadcast, but otherwise, hey, if you guys have any further questions, please email me, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. Let's continue on this show. We've got quite a number of things to still cover here. There's just so much. And Zohran Mamdani, let's take a look at New York for a moment. Zohran Mamdani, Times Square ball drop to celebrate US 250. Still going forward, but there will be no public event. I'm sorry. Why in the world is this happening? Look, the amount of, let's just call it what it is, idiots who voted for this Muslim mayor who is completely putting his agenda on full display. The fact that he hates America, the fact that he wants Islam to prosper, the fact that he wants to destroy one of the biggest cities as mayor to save money. You're probably right. Embraced madness. You're probably right. You know why? Because he's short. He's short, not in height, but short on money. Why bring up that he's Muslim? This is very important. Why? Because he's an agenda, a specific agenda to bring and put on the forefront Islamic ideas, banning dogs. There's so much here with Mamdani. And we've said on this podcast, look, we don't even have to go there. We've said on this podcast time and time again. This podcast is not about hating Muslims at all. This podcast is specifically about the Muslim mayor, Mamdani, who completely is anti-American. This is why. This is absolutely why. But New Year's Eve style event will continue as planned at midnight on July 3rd, organizers said Tuesday, in the wake of Mayor Zohran Mamdani's new emergency order banning hundreds of public celebrations during the FIFA World Cup in the Big Apple. But in a bizarre statement Tuesday, organizers said that the show will go on anyway without a crowd. This iconic moment in time that the U.S. celebrates, especially what we all view on all our TV screens who are not in New York, we view these live events of them dropping the ball in New York City 3 hours ahead of most of us who live on the West Coast. We're gonna see an empty street, or however they're gonna decide to focus the camera so it just focuses on the stage. This is not going to happen. One of the biggest events, especially on 250 years. This guy is going to get a lot of flack for this. And look, can he even do this as mayor? Is this even possible? Is Kathy Hochul going to step in and say, look, we're not going to do this. We're going to keep our people here. We're going to keep people to come to this event. The 3rd of July ball drop is confirmed and will take place at One Times Square alongside a live broadcast and celebration America 250 and One Times Square. Well, actually, I said New Year's Eve, right? We're not doing New Year's Eve, but this is for 250, the 250 America 250. Okay, let me clarify. Not New Year's Eve event. And look, I wouldn't even be surprised if he got rid of this celebration. I wouldn't even be surprised if that was the case, that he got rid of Christmas celebration. What was it? What is it? The Christmas tree that goes up in New York? The Rockefeller tree. I wouldn't even doubt it. While there will not be a public event in the Times Square plazas, we are working through standard coordination with city planners to look forward to sharing additional details soon. Look, let's hope this is a big mistake. Maybe early reporting here, and they are actually going to do something to allow people to celebrate America's 250. We have America 250, New York. We also have UFC 250 happening at the White House. So much just incredible, epic things that are going to happen. And look, we're also got to be aware, because we know that radicals, especially radical Islamists that we've seen, especially in New York, what has happened in New York the last couple of weeks and months with this rise of Islamic or a hatred towards America from Islamic fundamentalists. This is very important, very key, very how Americans have to be careful. You're in public areas, especially in situations like this. We look forward to what is happening around this country, this state. The next couple of states, Virginia, right? Virginia is another one. Donald Trump talking about Virginia, saying that he's heading to Virginia for meetings at Trump National. Let's take a look. Guys, I want to know your thoughts concerning all of this. You say there will still be crowds, but it will it'll be a normal night in NYC. No planned event seems a wise use of NYC dollars. We've had ticker tape parades many times. It's deliberate. You say, let's make a run on banks. Wow. Let's do it. Let's root out fraud. Bipartisan handshake. Yes, let's root out fraud. We need fraud to be ended in America completely. A couple of weeks ago, they just arrested a couple for $59 million in hospice fraud. Wild. This is something we can all get on board on. Something we can all discuss here. Unstoppable people mad about Iran. Or unstable people mad about Iran. Sorry, I read that wrong. Here we go. This is Trump. He says he's headed to Trump National, Virginia. I can't believe that this new governor, Spanberger, has done to the Commonwealth. So sad. She is adding so many taxes, a food and beverage tax, digital service tax, utilities tax, and more. It has lost its energy, vitality, and strength. And people, quite frankly, are having buyer's remorse here, just like they do with New York's Zohar Mamdani. We see people leaving the blue states to go to the red states. Companies, major companies, moving their headquarters outside of these blue states in order to go into these red states. Under Governor Youngkin, and now looking for ways to get out, break their deal. It all happened so fast. This went from a thriving and powerful place, one envied by all, to a commonwealth run by a person who has no concept of low taxes and economic strength. Now, remember, during her little campaign here, campaign that she actually won, she was running on being a moderate, but absolutely came in fully radicalized in her agenda. People that voted for Spanberger are saying to themselves, why did I do that? What have I done? We have a similar situation in New York, and most of all in California, where rich, job-producing people and companies are being forced to flee at levels never seen before. The tax base in California is literally disappearing, as some of the richest people and companies in the world have no choice but to leave. And look, I understand that. I live in California. Look, I want to get some representatives here on this show. Let's see if we could discuss with them how we can get rid of this fraud, how we can lower taxes. It'd be good to get the top Republican governor on the show. Governor who's running for governor candidate Steve Hilton, who's doing a really fantastic job, who just received an endorsement from Donald Trump concerning California gubernatorialship. got too expensive. Technically, she's a moderate. Yeah. She claims she's a moderate, but she's fully radicalized Democrat. And she's only showing her true cards or her true colors being a governor. She quickly, and look, Trump says that, here, what does he say here? That she doesn't know what she's doing, or she has no concept of low taxes and economic strength. She knows what she's doing. She knows what she's doing. And this is somebody who knows how to use and utilize her power as a governor. She's able to do it. They want to put a wealth tax, which gives them absolutely no alternative. As President of the United States, I am embarrassed to watch the destruction of once great and thriving states. These politicians are all sinking in the polls, but that doesn't help because they will create trillions of dollars worth of destruction in capable amounts. Remember, once people and companies leave, they are never coming back. We also seen here in Florida, we've seen an illegal alien criminal from Haiti who was released into our country by the worst president in history, crooked Joe Biden. And the radical Democrats in Congress just beat an innocent woman to death with a hammer at a gas station in Florida. Look, I'm not going to play the video because this is gruesome. I'm not going to do this on YouTube, not for you to view here. If you want to see it, you can see it on Trump's Truth Social. It's terrible. Disgusting. Like the words that, what can you even explain how disgusting this is? This is the camera footage outside of a convenience store here, where he's seen, look, I'm going to play just the beginning because you can see him on the left here smashing in the windows in the car. The woman comes out. I'm going to cut it there. That's it. I'm not going to play anything else. That's it. I'm not gonna play anymore. That's it. It's gruesome. It's horrible. It's disgusting of an action done by this person. Doesn't belong in America here. Never forget that Joe Biden and the Democrat Party turned the United States of America into a dumping ground, allowing tens of millions of criminals, lunatics, and the mentally insane from all over our world to pour into our country, totally unvetted and unchecked through our wide open borders. As I've said all along, if you import the third world, you become the third world. And this is what happened over the 4 years of Democrat control. We are rapidly turning to reverse this decline through deportations. But if the Democrats are ever given another chance at power, they will immediately reopen the border and allow America to once again be a safe haven for criminals. Please say a prayer for this innocent woman's family. We will ensure quick and severe justice is served in this case. I don't recommend you watch this tape because it is so terrible, but I felt I had an obligation to put it up so that people can see that Democrats are who Democrats are protecting. And this is true. This is who they're protecting. And wanting to come into our country, even now, after all we have been through. Again, viewer discretion advised, not for children. You say because their outsourced labor used all to lower their workforce, or used AI to lower their workforce. Trickle down has been a joke for decades. Trickle down economics has failed. We can all admit that. You say radicalized is a bit of a stretch, don't you think? You say all while demanding lower taxes. No, I don't think it's a stretch for Virginia governor. Not at all. Not at all. I'm not even sure if that's a joke, but not a stretch. All while demanding lower taxes, use their profits to buy back shares. You say NYC, a guy attacked 3 elderly with a knife or a machete. We also saw IEDs thrown into a crowd of anti-Islamic protests, not anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic, but that's what the left media was putting out there, anti-Islamic. The fake news media, as Trump says here, he says, has lost all credibility total credibility, not that they had any to begin with, but because of this, their massive Trump deranged syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. They love saying that Iran is winning when in fact everyone knows that they are losing. Look, we saw their foreign minister. Their foreign minister was saying, what have they accomplished here? I mean, that's equivalent to, Caroline Leavitt saying to the media, if Trump was taken out, J.D. Vance was taken out, the whole leadership of the administration was taken out. And Caroline Leavitt said to the media, what have they accomplished here? What has Iran accomplished here? They haven't accomplished anything. We're still a nation. We're still a country. You say, do a show on VA Gov with all those executive orders I emailed. Tragic. Yeah, we got to go through and run down all of that stuff because, look, that can happen to our own. This can happen in California if somehow the Democrats manage to swing or sweep this from under the feet of the Republicans who are in the lead right now. Eric Swalwell, and the way that media is portraying him. Look, this could be very dangerous. This could be very dangerous because Democrats might come in suddenly, one fell swoop, sway the California voter. This could happen to our state. It could happen to any state, quite frankly. But you say Trump devotion syndrome is more concerning. Look, we have the ability to criticize our government, most certainly. Do we like what's being done with Iran and how we got ourselves so involved in this situation, in this possible heck of a mess? Look, we won't be able to tell the sort of outcomes of this until later in the future. We're feeling a lot of I'm talking about the long-term outcomes as to Iran not obtaining nuclear weapons, their nuclear program completely being eliminated here. Past presidencies have only delayed the inevitable, where they were enriching uranium beyond the limits that they were allowed. Iran has lied time and time again. We know that they're willing to strike civilian populated areas. This is not new. They're willing to lie straight to your face and do exactly what they said they weren't doing. Iran cannot be trusted. Not the Persian people, but the Iranian regime. And we see people like Tucker Carlson. Look, he has the full freedom to do so on his podcast, to really go against Trump. And he has been doing so as of late. He's been talking about Trump. And look, I completely understand. Trump completely went scorched earth. We covered that on yesterday's broadcast. Talking about Candace Owens, Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly. And breaking it down one by one, each of these folks, you're talking about people who are very well capable of criticizing the U.S. government. But we need to be rational here when it comes to these situations. Look, I think a lot of these folks, all of these folks who knew Charlie Kirk personally, I don't know about Alex Jones, but knew him personally, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, almost seemed to try to fit the role of Charlie Kirk in some way, shape, or form. I don't listen to most of these folks. I don't listen to Tucker. I don't listen to Megyn Kelly or Candace Owens. Quite frankly, I don't find any type of beneficial content with them. But the reality of it is, as much as we want to just pinpoint all of the things that Trump does, there's some irrationality to some of the things that Tucker was bringing to the table. That's the only thing that we've been watching here on the show for the last, the last day that we looked at some of this stuff. Actually, we didn't even look. I looked at it personally to see exactly what was saying because he's going viral online for his stance against Trump, and I don't care. Quite frankly, I don't care. But otherwise, I think why it bothers me so much is because he is acting as a Christian who's trying to be sort of this spokesman, this spokesperson of Christianity, in a sense. I'm saying that very loosely. He had somebody on by the name of Nathan who they began to talk about the chosen people of God in this segment. We looked it over yesterday's broadcast, completely took text out of context, the scriptures out of context. And when he's talking about, Trump saying praise be to Allah on Easter, the way that we've seen Trump talk, this is not new. This is who he is. And whether you like it or not, he's our president because people voted him into power. When people are talking about invoking the 25th is only utilized when a president, and many will argue and saying, well, he's not really mentally there. Well, this is what the left says. We can see that he's very well capable of running the country. Very well capable of running the country. This is what this was meant to do. When presidents would have health issues, we've seen in the past that this was utilized 3 times. However, with the examples that we see, that this amendment that has been invoked actually 6 times since its ratification in 1967, primarily under Section 3 to temporarily transfer power during presidential medical procedures. Well, Section 2 is filling vacancies. Section 3, voluntary transfer, which is medical. Section 4, while often discussed regarding political crisis, the provision allowing the vice president and cabinet to remove a sitting president has never been invoked. But people like Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, they're all talking about invoking the 25th when it comes to Donald Trump. Many others. And you're right. You say, I didn't vote Trump in to be a virtuous pastor, nor did I vote him in because he proclaimed himself to be a Christian. He's not even a Christian, self-proclaimed Christian. He's not somebody who says he's Christian. He believes in God. At least he's agnostic. I think at best that's his position, is agnostic. I mean, time and time again, he's always thanking God in his Truth Social posts. He's always giving God credit when it comes to certain issues. I think he knows his position. I think he knows his power, especially with the people who are around him, such as J.D. Vance, people like Mike Huckabee, people like what's his name? I can't say his name without saying his position because it helps me remember his name. I don't know why I keep forgetting his name. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. I don't know why. I don't know. But these folks, you got to imagine that he's had many people on his side to talk about the gospel. And the gospel, simply put, especially for people in power like Donald Trump, is that God raises up kings and takes down kings. Not that Trump is a king, but this is applicable to those who are in power. The scriptures tell us to pray for those in authority. We've seen this time and time again. We've read over this time and time again, talking about the praying for those who are in authority. Praying for the welfare of our nation. You say he's the kind of guy who will say God bless, but never actually prayed in his life. Maybe. But we didn't vote him in because he was some holy person, righteous person. None of that. Partially because of his policies. There's a lot of different reasons why we would have voted this man into office, but he was the sort of wrench in this, what can we say, in this economy of America. This wrench that would be thrown in to completely dismantle the Democrats who have been in rule, destroying our nation. And yeah, I completely know that. Completely know. And people always bring this up. This man did not put his hands on the Bible when he took the oath of office. Look, could be many reasons. I actually was thinking about this the other day because somebody had mentioned this. Some commentator, I'm not sure, that he didn't put, I think it might have even been Tucker Carlson, actually, talking about this recently, saying that he did not put his hand on the Bible. And I think that when you realize what this is merely a tradition. Okay, we aren't, first of all, look, there could be different reasons why. One of the reasons could be, this is merely tradition and we don't have to, I don't know. I think you should stick with tradition in a sense. We saw Jesus many times go against the tradition of men. We've seen this in the scriptures where he says that you follow traditions of men rather than commandment of God. Could this be a reason? Who knows? I don't know. Could a reason be that he knows that if he swears on the Bible, I don't know. This is a very big, heavy, weighty thing to do. It's not this type of issue where we're just taking this lightly. First of all, we're not to swear against God, his throne, or anything of the sort. Scriptures are very clear on that. Could that be a reason? Maybe. We don't know. Does this guy even read the chat? Yeah, I'm reading the chat. You say, he said he didn't think he would go to heaven. And he's said time and time again, we've played a lot of the clips, we played it more recently too, where he says that he was making a joke. Now, whether he's actually being serious, saying that he's not going to make it to heaven, the reality is, I think he knows how to make it to heaven based on the people who are around him. I think he knows that you have to receive Jesus Christ into your heart. You also have to walk according to that. And there are just some people who just don't want to fully involve themselves into that sort of situation. They think that their life is over, essentially, when they become a Christian. I think that's completely false. Your life begins, actually, when you become a Christian. You say all your chats are being blocked. I don't think I've seen any of your chats being blocked. You say the simulation is about over. Be happy. There's some typos in your comments there. I'm sorry, bud. You say this, the man is planning to construct a golden statue of himself. Yeah, I think there was a, I don't even know if that has happened yet, but I know that was going viral. Obviously, this is something that we don't agree on. There's statues in the scriptures that obviously was erected during Nebuchadnezzar's time, or during the book of Daniel, during many others scriptures in the Old Testament. We can look at idolatry, idols being erected. These weren't good. This would completely turn America away from the small percentage that it is even looking towards God or looking to God. We need full-on repentance from our leaders. We know that the scriptures tell us that when the wicked rule, the people mourn, but when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. Now, would we say Trump is righteous? Well, I don't know. Righteous in what manner? Righteous in, in the sense of putting America first, looking out for Americans, really putting his life on the line for America. All these nuances that we could discuss here. Say, why were Jews expelled from Jerusalem? Thank you. Jews were expelled from Jerusalem. If you're referring to the Old Testament, the only way that we understand, or the only thing that we know in history concerning Scripture, what Scripture says is that God tells them that if they do not follow their commands, you can read Deuteronomy. We looked at scriptures yesterday in Leviticus, where God tells the reader that if the Jews forsake the command of God, he will remove them from the land, that he will cause others to walk on this land, to let me see if I can find it. I don't want to go too much into detail here, but you can look this up, and I highly recommend that you go. Oh, yeah, here, Leviticus 26. God gives blessings for obedience. If you walk in my statutes and observe my commandments and do them, I will give you your rains in their season, and the land shall yield its increase. You go on for in verse 14 of 26, this is punishment for disobedience. But if you will not listen to me and will not do all these commandments, if you spurn my statutes and your soul abhors my rules, so that you will not do all my commands, but break my covenant, then I will do this to you. I will visit you with panic, with wasting disease and fever, and consume the eyes that make your heart ache. There's so much, the punishments and the curses for disobedience of Israel, that if they do not obey God's commands, is a greater and bigger list than the blessings. Deuteronomy 27, 26, 27 is the greatest example of the blessings and cursings of Israel if they do not follow God's commands. Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 26 should be easy to remember. But if we go through Deuteronomy 26 for a moment, to answer your question, you say that the Jews, why are they exiled? Is it the word you used? Exiled or removed from the land? Removed from Jerusalem? There's a lot of history to go through when it comes to the Israelites and the land of Israel, which is Zion, which is Jerusalem. We have to look at 26 here. Okay, blessings for obedience, curses from Mount Ebal. Okay, curses for disobedience, but if you will not obey the voice of the Lord your God, or be careful to do all his commandments and his statutes that I command you today, then all these curses shall come upon you, overtake you. Cursed be you in the city, cursed be you in the field, cursed be your basket, your kneading bowl, cursed be your fruit of the womb, cursed be the fruit of your ground, cursed be the herds of your young flock, cursed shall you be when you come in, and cursed shall you be when you go out. The Lord will send you curses, confusion, and frustration in all that you undertake to do, until you are destroyed and perish quickly on account of the evil of your deeds, because you have forsaken me. The Lord will make the pestilence stick to you until he has consumed you off of the land. The Lord will strike you with wasting disease, and with fever, inflammation, and fiery heat, and with drought, and with blight, and with mildew. They shall pursue you until you perish, and the heavens over your head shall be bronze, and the earth under you shall be iron. And the Lord will make the rain of your land powder. From heaven dust shall come down until you are destroyed. There's a lot here, but I highly recommend that you go through and read through these scriptures to not just believe what I'm saying, but go back and read the scriptures and read them in context to know what God's saying concerning the nation of Israel. If you want to see about God returning the nation of Jews back into their land, or the Israelites back into the land, back into Israel, look at Ezekiel 36. Perfect example. And you're right, they wandered for 40 years for being disobedient. You say, I'm trying, folks. I really am trying, but I have lost so much respect for my fellow Christians. Look, I get you. Christianity and these sort of a spiritual plague that is infesting a lot of churches these days, that you're finding a lot of churches lacking discipline. You're finding a lot of churches with leaderships that are falling short. Look, you just got to pray for discernment. God is not will not forsake the believer who is truly repentant in their heart. Exactly. You do got to walk the walk. Read James. We read that yesterday. Read the book of James, chapter 2. I think it's chapter 2 or 3. Don't be like the man who goes into a mirror and observes his natural face, but when he walks away, he forgets what he saw. Talking about doing the word rather than just being hearers only. All right. Guys, thank you so much for being here. If you guys have any follow-ups, please email me, freedom@equallyoakeshow.com. Thanks so much for being here. And please consider subscribing to this show as we begin to close out. And I want to thank you guys for being here. Like, share, and subscribe. All those wonderful things. You guys have been absolutely amazing. We're going to be coming over this all this news. We're going to be covering it. All the things that are going to be breaking news, especially what is coming out of the Islamabad talks. Look, J.D. Vance said it himself that they are, there's no deal here. The Iranians could not come to a deal. The Iranians could not accept their deal, their red lines. But thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you guys. And I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless you and God bless America. Pray for your leaders. Pray for those who are in authority. And let's stop the fraud. However we can talk about this in any manner that we have in our circles of influence. Let's keep the conversation going. See you guys in the next one. God bless.